Welcome back, guys. We are here at the Tiger Dome of Korea University. And game number one was definitely one that I don't know if it's for the record books or what, but they certainly put out a clinic, did SKT. They smashed Griffin into the ground. Didn't even take 3 games this time like they did to Sandbox and Dom1. They just got it going right from game one.
If we don't see Griffin stand up in game number 2, I think the speed run could be on in some ways. The 3-0 is still the safest prediction. It's 13 game wins in a row in best of 5s for SKT domestically. If it hits 15, that is a hell of a dominating year.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Griffin, curious to see what they're going to look like, what their demeanor is as they get back onto the stage. I think that's going to be very telling, maybe, about what just happened during the break. Did Doran cry? That's a big question. Remember, now he gets stronger if he cries. That's what Griffin said in the intro.
That's true. We didn't get any inside looks on
Where's the
if
player
Doran
shot?
did
Come on.
cry.
Come on.
We don't want to see Clid. I know he won MVP and totally won in the jungle difference, of course. You know, he did, what, like 11,000 damage compared to the 900 of Tarzan. But we just want to see if Doran cry. So, production, if you could just, you know, get on that.
And if Tarzan is ever to live up to his sky-high reputation as a jungler, he can't be run over like he was in game number 1. The 10-to-1 difference in damage was actually not the full picture. It was even more significant in terms of how many plays happen around Clid and how much Tarzan was just the opposite of his nickname of King of the Jungle. He was very much a guest in the jungle that was owned by Clid. So, game number 2. Very interesting tidbit. SK Telecom T1 have chosen blue side. First time they did not choose red side so far.
Yeah, and that is really interesting because now Griffin, they're going to have their ability to try to recalibrate a draft relative to what SK Telecom are throwing at them. But it didn't work in game number 1, and maybe that plays into some of the mind games that one could expect. Griffin probably not expecting to get red.
So you are the coach, by the way, of the broadcast. Your CV Max, your team was kind of run over. You had a lot of time to think about this day. What adjustments do you want to see from Griffin coming into game number 2? Because to me, it was this toothless lack of jungle pressure that really cost them.
Well, I feel like, obviously, Tarzan on the Sejuani, he's going to feel really bad. He's probably even going to be criticized by a lot of players, but there's not that much he could do. I personally don't think the draft was the reason that they lost. They lost because Chovy got bulldozed in the mid lane. He didn't play around Vision properly. Vision wasn't set up properly enough. And then in the later stages, things just fell apart. I would feel like Griffin's cohesion wasn't there, rather than a draft issue by itself.
And let's try and understand and unpack why SKT chose blue. Because if you think back, the bans are probably going to be rolled back. They just slammed Griffin. So no reason to adjust the Yuumi and Karma bans. The third one last time was Olaf. It is rolled back. To choose blue, to me the advantage is to free up to be able to ban what you want to ban. And they've decided that Karma, Olaf, and Yuumi are those champions. Griffin have also rolled back their bans. We'll get the first with Kali. But focusing on the ban side, what this does is stop Griffin from playing an LPL style with Karma mid, Olaf jungle, and a really big combat advantage. So Griffin have understood this, and they're going to take the fangs out, pick up the spider, and try to level up their jungle pressure.
Well, they're giving Tarzan an ability to have early game influence, and now with the counter picks for mid and top, I'm imagining that you pick ADC next, wait for the second wave of bans, and then just try to adjust accordingly. That most likely would be the safest play. Ezreal is taken away by SKT, so I'm not going to have the ability to have the Ezreal Tom Kench there in bottom.
Wouldn't it be bold to see the first round Pike here to really stick it to Griffin when they're down? But
turn the LCK pop.
Exactly. We're going to go safety first. That is what the bot lane function is with the Ezreal and Braum. Action over to Griffin. See, now, a lot of teams would take Varus in this spot, but it isn't necessarily where Viper is. It's more of an Ashe player, if you think about it, when it comes to the Tom Kench combos.
Could do. Oh, there it is. Ashe being hovered.
Can you guys stop reading the script? I mean, we got to put on some semblance of, you know, interest in this pick ban.
I'm enjoying this script a bit more because now I can at least say Bot lane doesn't need resources. They shoot out hookshot, which is basically the same as scouting with your face the enemy jungle, and your jungler is the opposite of a just chill pill like the Sejuani. This is an aggressive pathing Elise. So at least they have a style here where you can say, if Tarzan is a passenger a second time, it's not the draft's fault. He has a lot more resources.
So guys, we do have a slight pause here. If you're wondering why we did hop out of pick ban, it looks like it's a mic issue, so it shouldn't take too long to fix. I mean, at most that'll be just replacing a headset and getting right back into it. So don't go away for too long. We should be right back into the action in just a moment.
Very unlikely to see the Silas rolled back in this draft. I wonder, what is your pick that will be taken at Vipers, the first pick on the red side after bans, that can kind of lane against Akali and the pool of available champions? Because they need a blind solo laner before they get more information. Are you just taking GP and being willing to flex it between mid and top?
Well, are they just going to try to go for the Renekton and then ban out Kahn's champions? And then they have the Elise Renekton going for them. And then you give Chovy the counter pick, and Chovy's definitely able to even play Renekton himself, so SK Telecom, they have to consider that for themselves. Gangplank is interesting because it can go up against the Akali. And so we'll have to see how Griffin want to choose their bans. I feel like it's going to be very indicative of what their champion will be out the gate for the fourth pick.
Now, Chovy's played one competitive game of Renekton. I take your point, obviously a champion whose like mechanical ceiling is a little bit lower. To that point, it was actually Griffin's most recent loss before this series started. In fact, Griffin came in with a 7-game winning streak before we actually took to the Rift today. So it doesn't feel like Chovy's innate, right? You think of him as this flawless Aurelia mechanics player. Renekton is a bit more binary. And whether that's just champion doesn't really catch his fancy or not, yes, he could go the way of the Renekton, but we'd be a bit surprised to see him go that way.
It was funny to get an inside look into,
Sword.
Not only the gigantic faces we have throughout the crowd, which are very fun. Good to see the fans having fun with those ones.
It's the final door, Valdez.
Yeah. I remember that was one of my biggest tweets back, maybe 2 years ago.
Whoa, Faker's in the audience.
Who's next?
There's Faker as well.
That's a young Faker, too.
WTF.
And older
Two
Faker
Fakers,
behind him.
2 Fakers. How is this allowed? Someone investigate.
This is ridiculous. I can't believe the sign cuts off what comes next. With the doors. Valdez.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, I got the world script already, so
Oh.
I know what doors are coming up next. I won't leak it yet, though.
At least the fans want to keep things secret, unlike you guys, who just call everything before it happens. And I just wanted to mention it was pretty interesting to see them using the extra time of the mic issue to, get down and dirty with what we already have in the draft here, because Griffin certainly need it, especially after the way that game 1 went.
They didn't have any new cards in game number 1. And remember, they've been watching on from the sides for a long time, and they bring back the Mordekaiser last pick that they've already shown multiple times. And I'm sure if we eventually get a mic check, I'm sure SKT saw the Mordekaiser coming in this draft. It wasn't a right turn. So this is where the onus is on the team with extra prep time to actually put it to good use, because like LS and I are saying, it is a surprise that Griffin find themselves, probably to Griffin themselves, on the red side again. They get a do-over, and not a lot has changed draft-wise when it comes to the champions restricted from them.
All right, and in game number 1, I felt like Griffin, they come out of that with a draft win. And so that's very surprising, regardless of what happened in the game and how SKT executed upon the draft and ended up closing out with a win, that you give them the red side draft again. Because already, I feel like right now, Griffin are well poised to go into the second ban phase of this draft. And it's going to be awkward for SK Telecom to answer it.
Well, let's unpack your comment of Griffin got a draft win, because everyone watched on as it was almost a perfect game.
It was
for
a perfect
SKT,
game
right?
for SKT.
And so far when we've looked at it, you've been very critical of kind of the mid play style, specifically with mid jungle not getting a lead or getting any setup. All right, they get another draft win. What in-game can people look for other than just the draft then to work out if Griffin have actually addressed the issues that led to a crushing Game 1 victory for SKT.
Well, how much autonomy is Tarzan going to have now in game number 2 on the Elise?
Theoretically more than Sejuani.
Yeah, a lot more than Sejuani. He's going to be able
Hopefully.
to take matters into his own hands without relying on his laners to play pockets in their lane properly and around vision so that he can scale up.
And that's a fun thing to unpack is, I'm going to go where my laner's getting leads. Didn't work in game number 1. Game number 2 is I'm going to manufacture leads where I go. So it is a shoe on the other foot. And theoretically, it just ups Tarzan's kind of like participation in a theoretical win. The requirement there, the onus on him is a lot higher.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see as well because the nickname for Tarzan, as we already mentioned, is King of the Jungle. He looked like the cub of the jungle in game number 1. Game number 2, I think Griffin have to come out swinging or else this might just be that 3-0 everybody's talking about. And what a way to do it than to get your King of the Jungle onto a pick that can actually make moves and get your team ahead and actually influence lanes. I think that's a good first step for Griffin, even though it's already looking a bit grim.
King of the Jungle is going to have to show up here, but Valdez, do you know how long Lion King lasted in Korea?
How long did Lion King last?
About 7 days. No, not
7
that
days.
short, but you know how long Griffin's going to last in the finals?
How many canceled dates
3
did you
games.
find
3 hours.
in those 7 days?
3 hours, 3 games, whichever.
Well,
Yeah.
But now, not looking like you have to clear all your evening plans. We even started early, 4 p.m. Korean Standard Time rather than the 5. The 7:30 dinner dream for an SKT fan is alive at the moment.
Papa, I'm just waiting to watch G2 versus Fnatic later on.
Fair.
All
But
right.
did
I
you
mean, we all are.
Did you have 5 hours worth of other
I
things
don't
to do
have
in between?
the script for that one, so I get to watch on in excitement. I'm excited here,
yeah.
but I already read the script.
So there's a bit of excitement taken away from that when you read the script. Yeah, it makes sense. It actually has confidential on it. I don't know
does.
why you were giving access to that, but might have something to do with your name. As we're still waiting here, guys, if you're wondering what's going on, it is just a mic issue with one of the players. I actually didn't hear which one it was, but we're getting it resolved very quickly as we're in the midst of our pick ban.
For full disclosure, something that's not talked about a lot is when you remake a lobby, it's not like you made a custom games with your friends and then just restart it. There's a lot of other things to keep stat tracking going and all other mechanics behind the hood that often adds kind of minutes of delay further. So even something as silly as like a misban or the client bugging out can actually have longer ramifications. And that's why we got the LCK podcast going all those years ago.
Oh, man. Well, the sign on our screen right now.
She is a Lux
one champion.
One champion, the Princess of Demacia. She's coming down.
It's the Griffinals Day. I don't know if it's a happy or a sad day. Hard to tell.
If she comes down, then she's going to dance to a Twice song or something like that. I don't know what that's in reference to. Twice, a very famous K-pop female group that we do have out here in Korea. Take a look at the audience here in the Tiger Dome. It's filled up with a lot of fans and signs for both teams here.
Felt a bit 70-30 during the opening of the show. No surprise, SK Telecom T1 does dominate the fan base. And Griffin, you know, they're making it to Worlds. They're going to have that international escapade. But the domestic title is what really grows a fan base here in Korea. And you do kind of have pause and wonder what Griffin's kind of look back on the year will be to go down 6-0 to SKT, which is a possibility. 3-0 in the spring final. 1-0 already up here. On the one hand, it's very impressive to play 3 splits and make the grand finals 3 times. On the other hand, it's one too many losses in clutch games.
In Korea, they have a title for that. It's called the Kahn Award, which was first given to the StarCraft 1 pro gamer Yellow, who I believe got 4 second places in a row in major titles.
It might have been more than that.
Well, he got more second places than that, but I believe in a row he got 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were actually to the hands of Boxer, who was SKT alumni.
And
what team was Yellow on? Do you remember?
Yellow was on KT.
KT?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's why there was all the overlap between Yellow and Score before Score finally won the big one last year.
Yeah, and we've had a bit of that in Korea, and unfortunately, if Griffin does go down to SKT again, no doubt they're going to earn that name, as fans will be quick to plop that on them against their own will.
And I think longtime LCK fans will think of Rox, who also had a blocker against SKT. The difference here is it's not just SKT. It was KT last year, it was Genji in the World's Gauntlet, and then SKT twice. Those are the biggest high-profile losses for the side of Griffin. So if it's not specific to a certain opponent that you just can't beat, then it's a larger problem. That's what Griffin will be looking to address both today and in the future. We're going into the back. We're going in and seeing Sword. Sword smiling.
Behind the scenes.
He's not guilty for any of today's results so far.
Sword and Chovy back there. We're taking a look now at the SKT side. All the subs over here in Coma.
Whoa, Crazy's there.
Relaxing back. Yeah, Crazy exists. And so does Kahn. He's taking a nap.
Who have we seen this? We've seen Haru, Mata, and that's it. The rest have not played.
The 2 subs.
Crazy.
Now there's 3 other ones. Gori's there.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, wait, Gori played. Gori played.
Yeah, he did. He did, actually, on the slump.
Yes, during the slump. Gori did come out.
So only Leo, I guess, hasn't played. And Crazy. Leo and Crazy are the 2 that haven't.
Yeah.
Because Haru got some games as well.
Well, I'm not expecting to see any subs tonight on the side of SK Telecom. However, if Griffin go down 0-2, I might expect that Sword could make an appearance.
I understand the logic, and he is that stabilizing older voice. He is the team or squad captain, I guess we should call him, but they put so much effort into retraining what Griffin would be with a top lane carry player that just plugging and playing and having him play Doran style would probably be an inferior tool, just like if Doran came in and was playing Scion Urgot. So I have to assume Griffin will stick with this roster as well, but at some point you just throw all your toys out of the pram and you just try something. So we don't know if we're at that point just yet. It's still unclear as to when we'll be back into thinking back.
Oh, we got a little sneak peek there at Effort Screen. He was in the lobby, but they did not start the pick ban just yet. So a bit more waiting to go here, guys. Hold on to your seats. I don't think it should take that long, but well, you never know with some of these pauses. We could get into a bit of an LCK podcast if it does get into this for too long. But
I pulled up Twitter, and ESPN writer Fion said, "Yo, LS, Yellow co-founded Kongdu. Guess who is partners in Griffin? Kongdu. Stop leaking the script."
come on, leak script.
Not trying. Oh, man. Well,
at this point, if you just live your life a certain way, you're just a scream.
That says Clid, you smited my heart.
Oh, that's pretty good when it comes to League of Legends. Kind of.
That's a cool sign.
Yeah.
I got the world script
How's it
as
looking?
well. Well, one of the winners of it is playing here tonight. Not gonna say more than that.
Must be Griffin.
What?
Am I casting the final again?
Oh no. All right.
Well, the headsets are going on, guys, so I think that means we should be getting back into pick ban, and it shouldn't take all too long. We have a lot of these giant flags for the side of SKT. I feel like Griffin have to up their game and get some flags going and flowing in the wind.
You know, I'd settle for some League of Legends flowing in game number 2.
Yeah, you know, that's I wouldn't mind that.
When we're talking about almost perfect game number 1s, then yeah, there's a lot of scope to level up.
Yeah.
Chovy on the right.
Says Light Sangak, just using the word for light instead of his actual last name. That's FLICKR for you guys who are not familiar. He is the light in the darkness, perhaps, and he certainly has been for the playoffs. As
very exuberant fan on the left here.
I think he was trying to make like a glasses shifting, I don't know, reference to Viper, of course, which was written in big letters.
I read that part. And
yeah,
the SKT.
You guys got that part? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad we're all on the same page here. least, about what we're talking about.
The Teddy page reads Ezreal, even though it's patch 9.16.
Yeah, that was interesting to have him pick that in game number 1 and be such a dominant force after a relatively laid-back bottom lane. I mean, they almost got ganked that one time, but other than that, I mean, they were just farming, and Teddy still looked pretty dominant on the Ezreal.
There's a giant Mata head sign. Don't suspect that we'll be seeing any of him here today. He is brought by SKT to act as the kryptonite against Griffin.
Have not overcome Mata in those grand finals consecutively. Not playing so far, though. Couple of games in the second round robin, but Effort has been preferred as the starter. I wonder what it means for Worlds. You would assume that Mata would come in the squad and that Effort would still be the starter, but there's still a long way to go till the World Championship kicks off. As it's not so far to go, number 2 pick ban gets
All
back
right.
going.
Here we go, guys. Sorry for the wait.
Wait, what did those bans do?
The bans, we're doing them again. Okay.
You know what? You need to just calm down there, Valdez. All right.
Easy
okay.
for you to say when you already saw this was going to happen.
I know what the next 4 bans
just
are.
I'm just seeing what's going on the screen here. It's all a surprise to me as we go, but I suppose not to you. As we've zoomed out again, I didn't actually hear what the problem was.
I believe it was a false start, and we're doing it again.
False start, okay. Step back, is this where we get the zoom in again? Or are we just looking at the trophy?
We're just looking at the trophy.
The trophy is really cool. It's very
How do you feel
different
about it?
from a conventional. Well, the OGN Spo TV era trophy was very much standard trophy, whereas this one's got the. It looks like almost like an optical illusion. Like it feels like something that's animated when you see it in real life.
He's dreaming of Singed.
I'm dreaming of Lehends Singe too.
Game 5?
Every time I see him, I accustom.
What game 5?
What?
Wait, oh, you mean wait?
Sorry,
this-
I was dreaming too.
If you think about it, this is Game 5 of SKT versus Griffin in Best of 5 finals this year.
There you go.
It's the time,
We got
baby.
the best of 5 that we were all looking for.
God Chovy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And that's Lehends in the stars.
To be clear, I'd take good Chovy for game number 2. God,
Okay.
Chovy can wait
Yeah.
out a while.
Even just all right Chovy.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
possible Chovy.
You know? Alive Chovy.
Oh, man.
Oh, you finally found a Doran head. Saw that out there.
That's
Small
not an
little
item
one.
yet.
Yeah, the Doran's head.
Yeah, it's not an item.
Maybe
No.
that's a little bit too violent.
Yeah,
for
you gotta get with the times.
Yeah. I mean, Kahn said Doran's sword, which was a nice reference to Doran's blade. There's no Doran's sword just yet.
There's actually a reference to that final 2 years ago in the Longzhu vs SKT Trash Talk. Khan at the time said, I don't care if it's Untaro or Huni, I'll take them 2v1, and he said the same thing today about his potential top lane opponents.
Yep.
I will forever be distracted by it saying Papa right next to the, I guess, the right shoulder, but the left screen shoulder there.
Ooh,
Look at that
that is
block.
very nice.
FLICKR of Legend. Unfortunately, Griffin are very stubborn once again with their bans.
That's a really old FLICKR head.
Yeah.
there, I'm pretty sure. That
That's what I was
picture's
saying.
Really old.
It's young FLICKR and old FLICKR, the two different heads.
The fan is excited to be on camera.
Viper's wearing a bandana here in this shot.
Do you reckon Viper could pull off a bandana?
Yeah,
No.
I think so.
We already have disagreements here on the costumes.
Yeah, well, all right, break it down for us, Valdez. Why do you think he could pull it off?
I feel like not your average person can just put on a bandana and make it work. You know what I mean?
Here's what I'll say. He is aloof as a kind of personality. So aloof and a bandana could work, you know? No leather jacket.
You could go that way, or you know, when he does like a really awesome play in the game, he like goes crazy and he's like shaking his hands and stuff. The guy's actually got a lot of attitude under his skin, so he can kind of be that like mysterious aloof, but actually very energetic under the skin type of guy. I think a bandana works for him. What's your reasoning, Lost Sight? What do you got to say about this?
You just called
Looking
me out
at me.
there. I don't have any sight. I can't really make an educated opinion on this matter.
Yeah.
You know, I was just saying no just to be a contrarian, okay?
Really? That doesn't
Yeah.
sound like you at all.
Nah, never. All right.
That is a giant effort head. Or sign. Effort's head doesn't fill up the entire sign.
All right, well, Teemo hats in attendance. I don't normally see these anymore. They don't even sell them at Law Park, I don't think.
I think they usually were just kind of
They're a
handed out.
legacy item.
Are they really?
Oh, I don't know.
I think they were mostly handed out by like Riot Staff, kind of like
Yeah,
the
they
plushes
feel-
and stuff.
They definitely feel a little bit like a legacy item. That's really interesting. You know what is a legacy item here? Is the white KDA hats.
Oh.
You can't get them anymore.
I know there is
Only in
some
special events.
KDA-specific merch here on site. Doesn't help a lot of the people in chat, but there is some new KDA stuff going
Where's
around.
that
There-
TFT merch?
There's a
Has that come
Yumi-
out yet?
Stop it, Valdez. Pengu isn't
How about
here
Pengu?
yet.
You guys buy any of those just yet?
If Pengu was in the store, everyone in the audience would have one right now. All right, that would
That's true, actually. We probably would have bought 3 Pengus up on the desk.
I
Yeah.
would have bought a dozen. Okay.
It doesn't even have anything to do with League of Legends, the game.
Doesn't
But,
it?
I mean, it kind of does, but
The creator.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, but
Pengu made Summoner's Rift.
he kind of got, popular in TFT, is what I mean to say.
Just to be clear, what came first, Thomas Kench or Pengu?
I see where you went.
Because you just said that he created League of Legends. Theoretically, how we doing here? Follow the money. It goes to Riot Games.
I do
then
believe
to
Pengu
Papa
did
Smithy.
come first. Yes. Well,
Well, this is the longest mic issue we've had. I don't...
I'm getting a little bit taking a trip back to the past at SPO right now.
Oh,
The
boy.
good old days.
SPA's TV.
Spas TV, yeah.
The toilet issue.
Oh yeah.
I actually worked with both of you at SPO.
You did.
You did.
Yeah,
And not consecutively, because you had good old Crumbs in the middle
that's
there.
true. I did LS and then Crumbs and then Papa for a year. And now I got both of you back at the same time on this track. Yeah.
This is kind of the Spocast, too.
There we go.
This is kind of pick and ban.
Well, we'll see if it's a real start or a false start this time. Of course, same bands that we did have from the beginning. If you guys are joining late, we already picked the first phase, so that's why they're going so quickly. Before we did get into the issues, so everybody's just going to pick what they picked before. And I'll let you guys delve back into exactly the analysis of the draft and what was going on between the two teams.
Well, Ash was the final pick there for Griffin. We're going to have to see what they ban away, so my speculation is that they target Kahn and then just elect to give a counter over to Chovy and just have Doran go in blind, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. They actually banned the Skarner.
Well, our hypothesis was, when we predicted the Ash pick, that the least priority going up was to allow Tarzan to be the person that created the action. That was definitely Clid, our MVP of game number 1. So you got to blind something to set up that all-important last pick advantage here for Griffin. Or you could come up with this potential mid-lane champion that can address Akali, but also be flexible. We already talked about how FLICKR in solo queue has been liking the mid-lane GP against Akali, but we had Akali top lane in game number 1, so a lot more questions than answers as we roll into which of the blind solo laners we'll get from Griffin. Now, Jace would be one that has been piloted in both lanes and could be considered. It feels more like a mid lane pick recently. The Sylas we saw in game number 1 didn't get much value in the mid lane that time.
Sylas will be locked in. And so now this means that Doran, yet again, he's going to be given a counter pick matchup, most likely. And we're going to have to see what SK Telecom want to lock in here. And this is a really awkward team composition out of Griffin, I do have to say. They have a neutralizing bot lane inside of the Ashe Tom Kent. They have a Sylas packed with an Elise. What type of hyper carry or just other primary carry are they trying to find here as SKT? We're bringing out the Glacials.
I'd love to see Sejuani Aurelia here and have Aurelia Akali flex and Sejuani to add pressure there, because then you don't have any extra information to get that correct counter pick at the end. Something flexible here would give Griffin so little info about what lane assignments to anticipate. This would be an old favorite of Kahn. If they go the way of the Camille, they lock it in, and while the lanes are much more face up, the good news stories don't roll yet for Team Griffin.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not 100%, although it is kind of like 90-95% that Kahn is going to be piloting that, but I wouldn't even be surprised if FLICKR wanted to throw it into the mid lane. We did see that a bit with Sejuani in the jungle, and we talked about counter pick. We do have the Gangplank coming in here as the last pick for Doran.
Now, compared to the Aurelia, while the Camille is flexible like you talk about in the early weeks at Showmaker on Dumb One Gaming, playing mid lane Camille quite a lot, GP actually beats both these champions pretty reliably. So Camille's not a strong pick into Gangplank. The Aurelia would have a bit more potential there, but Camille has been a win condition very reliably in the side lane for Kahn and in the LCK. So it is another potential engaged champion. SKT have a dive trio on the top side.
The other thing about this is the SKT, they have a 1-3-1 if they want to try to access it. The problem is that Tahm Kench and Gangplank they're quite good at shutting that down and helping negate that helping negate that from being an option that SKT can rely upon later on in the game. Griffin's team composition, it's very mid-rangey in the sense that yes, Gangplank can really go late game, but this whole team composition feels like it's going to decide the game in the mid game on that first Baron, and if it can't do anything there, I don't know what leg it really has to stand on, because then Camille's just going to take over the game.
Yeah, I mean, as we go later this time around, SKT do have more options in game number 2. Definitely looks very different compared to the first one, but we'll have to see if the results look any different as we hop onto the Rift for game number 2. The Griffin fans here super loud as we do go into game number 2. I was mentioning before how with the way game number 1 went and how dominant of a victory it was from SKT, I think if Griffin don't come out here and at least put on a close game performance and actually fight back, we could just see this go into a 3-0. So I'm expecting Griffin, after this pick ban, to really come out here and try to gain an early lead.
And the big lead they got in draft compared to game number 1, when there were so many common bans in this game, was the Elise jungle versus the Sejuani jungle. So at level 1, the question is, can Griffin hide where Elise is starting and Elise's opening path? Because when they get access to Hawkshot, there should be a lot of different options for Elise to target on the map.
Well, yeah, now we're going to see the flip in the reverse of how well can Kahn and FLICKR do playing against the Elise, and are they going to allow Clid to get online in the later stages? And like we already mentioned, SKT now, they have the ones with the superior scaling late game. And if the early game goes SK Telecom's way, things are going to be really awkward, because even though Griffin's team composition has a very mid-rangey feel, they're very powerful around the 20-25 minute mark, there's not really a super strong identity within it, and so it's all going to come down to Tarzan.
Well, guys, we did get an update about what the pause is about. There's a Doran PC issue, I believe is what I did here, so we are going to have to wait and see exactly how to fix that one. Kahn was also typing his 100-word essay before he does go to bed. It's very important that all you guys in Twitch chat do that. As, yeah, we're just going to have to wait and sit back once again. There isn't too much new information from the pick ban for you guys to talk about.
I've just come to a realization. I was staring at the Griffin fan sign for the finals and not getting it, because it's Griff Finals, you know, G-R-I-F and Finals. Oh. I was reading it as Griffinals, like millennials, and I was like, is this a really, like, high-level kind of reference here? But no, listen, we're in Korea, and we jam 2 English words together and make a word.
I get it. You're a bit of a boomer, Papa, so you're not the millennials. It's all right. Look, even the crowd's laughing now.
Some nice hair going on.
Yeah.
from that particular. And here are some of the cosplayers that have been around the stadium. We actually saw them near our room earlier.
I think she's trying to say
There-
T1 fighting.
There is 2 Star Guardian Lulus here. They are not happy with each other.
Oh, she's doing the dance. Which champion is this, actually? Oh, KDA, okay. This makes sense.
I believe it's KDA Kaisa. Is what
Kaisa, okay.
I could also be wrong. It could be Evan. It's one of those two.
I wonder, like, what was the idea when we put the camera up here? I mean, good job. That was great. She looked a little bit nervous, but we got through it there. A nice little dance for the audience here as, yeah, just still waiting on the pause. Maybe we can look at some of the other cosplayers. There were some really sick ones that we saw before. And,
There's King of the Jungle himself.
yeah, this guy says he came to study the jungle.
Maybe he should have been watching Clid again.
He should not have watched game number 1 yet. Definitely the wrong,
That is
wrong player to
Tarzan.
watch. Tarzan's looking at the sign right now, too.
He's not impressed.
He's
Yeah.
definitely not.
Say, are you making fun of me? Those fans, by the way, the handheld fans, highly recommend. But you want to get a high quality one because they have a much higher speed compared to the cheap ones.
But the weather in Korea cooling down a little bit.
Yeah.
In recent days, so while it's still LCK summer, maybe the time of the hand fan is behind us for 2019.
That was a very weird fad when it ended up picking. Everyone had one on the streets in Korea.
Do you buy into fads, LS? You don't strike me. You
No.
strike me as a holdout rather than a
Yeah,
person that gets converted.
LS
know what?
still buys coffee for Mega Coffee for like $1.50.
no, I've abandoned Mega Coffee. There's
Oh,
a different,
really?
There's a different shop near my house that's 20 cents cheaper.
20 cents.
So I make the trek.
Snack.
How much time do you
Trying to
spend
pilfer
to
all
get
the coins.
20-cent cheaper coffee?
Probably about an extra minute.
That's good
That's not bad.
exercise.
It's nice
Yeah.
to know how much your minutes are worth. LS.
There you go.
20 cents a minute.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
You
Well,
do the
no,
math there, and he's actually pretty
it's
cheap.
10 cents a minute, actually, because you got to go a minute there and then a minute back.
Think about it.
I'm doing math on stream. I probably shouldn't do this again.
You shouldn't do that. You're
Oh,
from
well,
NA.
It's been
I am
dangerous in
too.
the
I
past.
know. I've gotten myself in trouble before with both of you guys, I think. As the lights went down, I wonder if maybe we're getting ready to hop back in. FLICKR looks very focused. So far, he's played the Renekton into the Akali. No, I mean, we did have Renekton for the second time, but no Echo or, what was the other one? Kiana.
No
that he's
red
played
side.
recently.
No red side
Yeah.
for FLICKR, so obviously does change things. There's been first picking the Akali where possible. Trying to work out what it is.
Championship win rate?
87.5%. Yes. So what we are referring to here is that LCK history. SK Telecom has played 8 finals. They have won 7. The only one they lost was when they ran the gauntlet but lost to Longzhu Gaming 2 years ago.
It's Timo.
Is it though?
We found the real Timo in the audience.
Doesn't look like a yodel.
He's like,
Are you sure that's a Euro?
get away from me.
Valdez?
Well, I've never seen a Yordle in real life, so I'm not 100% sure.
You're missing out.
The General Teddy. And there was another word there that I'm not 100% sure, but they called him General Teddy, especially after that Varus performance that he did have against Damwon, I believe, where he popped off in a big way in one of those last team fights. Maybe that's part of the reason why Varus has been banned a couple of times against him.
To Teddy's credit, he's used very little resources in the drafting in playoffs. Was really looking at a lot of SKT's red side drafts. They played so many games on red side, as that is a big King Poro there.
It's King Poro. It's on discount today at the LOL shop here.
How much?
I think it's 42,000 Korean won.
Oh, it's not bad.
About $35.
Yeah, the
US.
dollar's really
It's about
strong
35
now.
US. Yeah, the dollar is really strong.
Yeah, so it's probably like 32.
Damn. That's my
Actually,
age.
probably is, yeah.
Wow.
No.
It's a sign.
You gotta buy it.
Okay.
Yeah. Put it behind you on your stream.
Always a possibility there. But yeah, just coming back to Teddy. Happy to blind pick his AD carry. Happy to first round his AD carry.
Here's Atlas.
Oh, what? No, we got
There
Atlas.
he is, in the middle, at the
We
top.
brought him to this final.
Yeah, it's Atlas. He doesn't have a
Nice.
headset on, so he doesn't know. But we know he's there. Hello to Atlas.
Good old, that was a good spot. I didn't realize he was behind them the first couple of times.
Rumors of your lost sight are greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have the best sight of all.
I'm
of
always
us all.
able to recognize.
Maybe you're
which I-
always just looking for Atlas.
He glows, yeah. You know, he just tends to stand out.
You're kind of drawn to him, and
Yeah.
you know
It's the T1 Mount Rushmore
It's not-
there.
that was pretty cool.
Nice little hand. But enjoying it's with effort in the roster, which a lot of people wouldn't have expected opening the year.
Effort, surprisingly robotic for a game that can be just so emotionally demanding. I remember we were talking to the Korean casters behind stage, or backstage, as it's commonly referred to, before the game started, and
Wow.
they were like, yeah, it all comes down to mental state.
I mean, this guy should be able to sell this, by the way. That is so well done.
Artist,
and I'm
by the way.
assuming that he did it just prior to
Yeah.
this match going live.
That's not something you can, just prepare and bring down. You got to come down here, get the fan sign, and then do it probably while standing up or,
Yeah, I wonder how long it took him.
That's impressive.
Pretty high quality.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing our best to provide high-quality banter during this extended Murder's
Yeah.
Row of issues, because we've had in-game and out-of-game issues here. In case you're joining us late, we are paused very early into game number 2. SK Telecom almost perfect game in game number 1 against Team Griffin.
Just one turret. That was the only difference, and it was on a trade for turrets that SKT eventually won out on because they were pushing the top side. They also got a kill with that one, whereas Griffin did not get any kills in game number 1.
And scarily, we're in the boom game, because game number 2 victories of what have led to those third games against Damwon and Sandbox, where mental exhaustion, frustration, anger, those have been kind of on display. 2 best-of-5s in a row. We could be there very shortly, especially if this pause does abate.
And I do have to wonder how the pause is maybe even affecting the mental state of the players. Griffin, after coming off the perfect game, you have to wonder what kind of thoughts are resonating in their mind.
Probably bad ones, if
Yeah.
we're going to be real. There wasn't a lot to like about game number 1 for everybody involved.
T1 win, FLICKR fighting, and then I do not know what it says below.
Yeah,
That is not Korean.
That's not Korean. A lot of Chinese fans for SKT. They're
They
one of the
fly
biggest
out.
brands
Yeah, they
here
fly right
in,
over.
not only in Korea but in the world, because they have won so many big tournaments, especially world tournaments.
A lot of global fans in the audience as well. You always meet the most foreign fans in the series that's the same day as the SKT series, but not the SKT series,
Yeah.
because they'll just never be able to fight off all the loyal Korean fans to actually watch the SKT match.
Speaking of which,
As there are
hello.
some of our fans that I invited here. This is from the Australian Embassy, so shout out to them for coming to watch some more League of Legends. Love having you over here. They actually published some stuff on the Australian Embassy Facebook page as well when Atlas and I were casting a couple weeks ago now.
All right, well. Griffin, 1 mission, 1 team. How do you feel about that?
They're not expanding to any other esports, so just one team for now. That's what I
Anger's
get. That's what I garner from that.
Pangu is extremely disappointed. Or does it mean that these players are just going to take on different esports? You never thought about that angle. I get it.
Yeah. Well,
What a nice family portrait. Except for those socks. What are those? Hello?
It
Who are we
doesn't-
calling out here?
it doesn't have
Look
every
at
player.
Kahn's socks. Are you kidding me?
How did you even see that?
Yeah, I couldn't even see.
Oh, yeah, and he's wearing sandals with his
Oh
green
my
socks.
God. Oh, those are dreadful.
They do not get a pass
Those are really dreadful. Are there any
from
trimmers out there?
from
or-
LS, aka Lil Stylist.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought it was LS, aka Love Socks.
I like that one.
Thank you.
I like
mean-
that one better than what you
Oh,
said.
okay, sorry.
Yay!
I lose this edition of Caster Wars. But, yeah, You love socks, so you know a lot about them. You remember that time that I showed up to the cast with 2 different types of socks?
That was awful. Every time I had to look.
And I was wearing shorts.
Oh,
like,
that was...
I couldn't even hide them.
And you remember the time LS was going through a bad breakup and he was LS, aka Love Sucks? That was bad.
I remember that time.
He was very broken up by it.
And then he met Atlas.
And then I met Atlas.
It's been true love, apart from the Lion King snafu ever since.
Yeah.
He really
It
let me
ended
down.
happily ever after.
We're going to see It Chapter 2 together. Next
Oh,
week.
how romantic.
It really is.
You guys into clowns? Big fan of the clown Drake, I hear.
I'm quite a big fan.
Yeah. I've never seen any of the It movies.
Yeah, me neither.
Or read the book.
Don't read the book. Don't read the book.
Okay.
Okay, just watch the movie.
I'll take your advice on that one. SKT, you're gonna win on my birthday, right? Well,
Odds are yes.
right now it's looking pretty good.
Just give the guy the paper right here. Right?
It's marked confidential in red biro. Calm down.
Not anymore, Papa.
Wait,
Right?
has it been redacted?
Red
It has
Pyro?
That's an Australian
absolutely
word
not.
for hence.
Listen, the real
Well, you're
reason
casting with 2 NA.
I know! It's an NA casting
Kokonas.
situation over here.
You're here on the desk with 2 Kokonas. You can't say
Uh.
Byros and expect us to know what that means.
Sorry.
the real reason
Kind of sounds like a food or something.
that we were in a pause so long is because everyone felt bad that they knew that the script was a 3-0. So they wanted to give the fans a little bit more time inside this stadium.
Well, guys, speaking of time, we're going to save a bit of time. No more pause. We're back into the game. As, once again, SKT is up 1-0. SKT did choose blue side.
Man, find yourself a duo lane like Clid has found Teddy and Effort, where they just blind pick their lane first round and give you a leash. What a beautiful duo they are here. A jungler's dream.
Oh. And they do know
You
that...
got very overly
like that?
excited
Whoa.
for a few
I was-
hitting. If you didn't know there was a huge pause, that excitement would be a bit surprising.
There's a Sir Thomas tense in the game, Papa. Come
That's
on.
true. That's
Get
true.
it together.
You saw that tongue come out and you just couldn't hold back.
I was a bit overwhelmed by it. I was-
He likes what he likes.
yeah, it is
Yeah, I mean, you know.
quite large.
What?
What?
Don't know where we're going with that one. But a lot of winning champions on the side of SKT, except for one that stands out pretty obviously in the top lane.
And this matchup is a punishing one where you just kind of get shot in the face a lot. Really no interaction till much later when some items are completed. So, again, because we've talked about stuff and then it's been forgotten through all the pauses, remember that Griffin's adjustment staying on red side in game number 2 with SKT choosing blue was to up their jungle aggression game by picking the Elise.
Oh, here we go.
Uh-oh.
Doran's getting in there, one shot, but it's not going to be enough. So actually does not predict it well enough. And Kahn was level 3, Doran 2, not quite able to finish it off. They trade flashes, which could be interesting if Tarzan was around, but he's actually bot side for now.
And that's really surprising that Doran made that kind of a mistake. Now, the lane state is still beautiful for him, but Tarzan
All right,
coming
going
in.
on to Teddy, looking for that burst damage, has to use the repel, and will get devoured up to avoid any turret shot that came after he got aggro again from the red buff. So, again comes in a nice amount of chunking onto Teddy, but no kills or anything like that.
Issue I have with this gank, though, kind of like we called the gank in game number 1, is where else would he realistically be going? You hate ganking for a GP. He provides nothing in lane. He's a champion that really exists to help out with other lanes until his items are online. And mid lane is a Chovy, so best of luck with that one. So, predictable gank. He had to go fast to stop the minion wave from just tanking every cocoon on the gank. Nothing doing, though, from that, and now Clid is actually monopolizing a lot of control around top side. Remember that Flash is down on both top laners.
There's a massive wave here,
It's pushing
but it
out.
is pushing into Kahn, which makes this a bit easier for Clid to make the gank happen. Getting a bit of harass down as well as clearing out some of those.
The ward doesn't see him.
Yeah, the ward doesn't see him. Clid still hidden for now. And Doran, good lane control, or rather positioning. He's able to get away from that one without a hitch at all.
Now the thing for me is that he has his golems up at the bottom, or the Krug camp, but he's not obligated to rush there right away. Could have been a little bit more patient with this wave, and we know that Doran's minions, they're too large in volume. They're guaranteed to push into Kahn. They could have just been a little bit more patient, probably would have paid off with the kill.
But man, does the ward they put down spotting the lane gank pay off here, as it's spotting Krugs and the lane gank from the Elite. So they still are able to give a lot of resources to Kahn without actually a kill, and maybe we'll just come on bot side, but that will be read by the Griffin ward.
Clid gonna clear that out, gives him a bit more control on the bottom side. You'll notice that Teddy getting a little bit behind in terms of CS. Of course, Ash, very nice lane control, especially with the Tomkins. We got level 6 for Chovy, but not really trying to make anything happen in the mid lane. A lot less action to start off this second game rather, compared to the first game, with no kind of Renekton Elise to make the ganks happen automatically.
Do notice that neither of the mid laners are opting into what became the MSI meta, largely pioneered by Caps going for the Conqueror on both the Akali. And Silas going to be the Grasp Silas once again as top side.
Oh, that would have been slick if he could have slipped that one in between the minions. Doesn't quite happen though, nice try, especially because it was pushing into Doran. But not meant to be, as he does miss the skill shot.
Remember, has a CS disadvantage here, LS, so it's not like the best part of the laning phase, which is the first 5-6 levels for GP, has actually yielded any real advantages.
Well, this is a really creative kind of gank. Clid gonna probably wait for his cooldowns, but Kahn has level 6.
Kahn's level 6, Clid very far away from that here. Tarzan pathing to the top side. He's got his red coming up here as well. Another nice ward comes in there to spot the lane and the Krugs. We'll spot Tarzan coming in. We got a TP now as Clid's kind of in an awkward spot. FLICKR just going to TP on top of a cannon barrage. And with Elise there, they're really not able to get anything done.
Yeah, I have no idea what any of them were just thinking right there. The level of indecisiveness out of Clid, really surprising. He knew where Tarzan was. He knew that he had come over, but even his reaction when they were both inside of the same brush, it almost looked like he was startled, or that just the communication in general was off. So FLICKR blows his teleport for no reason whatsoever, and even though at the end of the day, SK Telecom aren't losing out massively, it is still something that's really shocking to see.
Yeah, Clid definitely had Tarzan achieve a lot with very little. The economy of movement there, advantage for Griffin, not using a TP and not using resources, does, for once, actually give them kind of a relative lead, but it's going to turn into something because with TP down, Griffin do actually address this mountain drift.
It's good to watch game number 2 for Tarzan compared to game number 1, where he was largely able to do absolutely nothing. This time, he attempts a gank in the bottom side, attempts one in the top side. He's there to stop the gank play from SKT. Now he's doing the Mountain Drake, and Clid not able to pressure this because of the priority in the bot side. Take a look at the CS as well, going the direction of Viper and Lehends in the bottom lane. Griffin with a great start here compared to game number 2.
He might be forgiven for thinking that the Ash Tom Kench is a hard counter here, and it does have a range advantage. You do get chip damage in, but doing a great Varus Kench impersonation here. Viper on his Ash that he does tend towards over that Varus.
And I mean, rolling the first Mountain Dragon with a second one coming up right around the time that Griffin would be completing their first major 4 items. If they can get that second Mountain Drake, it opens up possibilities like 2-manning Baron, which normally isn't typically available.
Yeah, it's absolutely a good start with those kind of Drakes that do come out here. And with the game going the way it is, I mean, you take a look at game number 1, we had 2 ganks in the mid lane essentially very early on. Game number 2, it's 10 minutes, it's 0-0. Griffin were able to get that Mountain Drake, but we did talk about how in the draft, SKT did enjoy the scaling advantage when it did come down to it. So You guys feel like the early game not so bad for SKT? Do you think Griffin can push it to bigger and higher heights in the mid game?
So, to answer your question, what I will pose is, given how this game could have gone, i.e. losing in very one-sided fashion in game number one, having a stable game number 2 where you can at least get some of your stage jitters out and still feel super competitive in 10 minutes is still a nice position for Griffin, and we're looking for them to take their leads around the one-item timings. That's not there just yet, so for now, the safety-first approach from both sides does suit SKT eventually, but for Griffin, I think they'll take this first 10 minutes.
Well, Griffin definitely going to feel comfortable with how they're coming out of this. Remember, they're a mid-rangey type of team composition that doesn't necessarily want to go too late, but it definitely doesn't want to do things super early on outside of any Elise games. However, SKT, the Camille is doing really, really well, and she's going to be the key to victory in the later stages of the game. And that's something that Griffin has to keep in mind. They want and need to get the second Mountain Break.
Remember that Ravenous Hydra comes in, you can really shrug off any attempted GP trades, and the all-in potential is there as well. Lane has double control ward from Griffin's side, that's why Clid is trying to provide some sort of backup.
Take a look at the ward that's on the blasting plant here too. They're really covering Doran and making sure that he can't die, but a lane gank could be very interesting, especially if that Hextech ultimatum comes out first. But Clid is going to be spotted, and the flash comes in. Doran in a lot of trouble. Let's see if he can outplay this one. 2-on-1. Absolutely not, as Kahn, that key to the victory you were talking about, picks up first blood.
And it's a huge pickup for the Camille. It sets the tone in top lane now. And it comes at a point where now Doran, he's going to have to commit his teleport back into top lane. Kahn, if he plays it right, can actually save it by getting a recall off, returning to top lane just by walking. And then he has the teleport available for the Mountain Dragon, which can be really big. Camille getting ahead and accelerating, not something Griffin want to have happen.
And sometimes you read too far into some small quirks of a game and ascribe too much value to them. I actually think that was a really big moment this game, as Chovy's actually continuing to win the trades against FLICKR, because remember how we were talking about how everything was warded. They went to every expense, no expense spared by Griffin, to back up Doran on the top side, and Kahn was so decisive in a way that Griffin were unable to be in game number 1. They find an advantage even when all the I's were dotted, all the T's were crossed for Griffin to the SKT side, and it means that if you can't play that far up as Doran with that much information, can you ever play far up? So the amount of kind of mental warfare that was won by that aggressive flash from...
Well, their items currently are almost even, although Ninja Tabby on the side of Camille, perfectly executed flash behind Doran to get the bounce into him, and even though he gets locked up by everything, he doesn't end up flashing.
That's some reverb there on
That's
the cheers
crazy.
coming through. That was insane.
I got really scared for a second.
Well, we're all safe here. It's all good. And it was kind of interesting to see that ultimate come out from Clid just in case. He didn't even have to use that.
We call that a party ultimate. He was
Yeah.
celebrating. He didn't even need that ultimate.
We got the kill.
That's the popping the champagne.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that
Gragas
is.
is usually the one that does it.
Yeah.
But in this case, Sejuani still feeling it.
And take a look at the Sejuani now. The first Mountain Drake went the way of Griffin, but already the tides are turning over to SKT. Clid getting started here on the second one, and will not allow Griffin to stack them here. You'll notice that nobody on Griffin, even if they knew this was happening, are going to move over to this one.
All right. You know
No
what?
Infernal for you.
Someone's getting fired. I can't believe this handwriting.
What I'm struck by in this series is how much SKT is doing with so little. Like, they were able to get that kill against the run of play. They get the Drake against the bot lane that's been a 30-odd CS advantage, with a lot of lane control for Griffin for the majority of this game. The counter punches from SKT to find holes in the armor here from the Griffin side has been so impressive, and it's all happening ahead of schedule, ahead of script even. As it feels like SKT are going rogue. and doing better than even we could have assumed, and Griffin continue to really wait for that perfect play that never seems to be coming.
And if you are a Griffin fan, you can take solace knowing that, okay, there's still the opportunity of the mid game, which we're starting to transition into right now, where the gameplay will get to the Trinity Force. You gotta wait for him to get to level 13. And then at that point of the game, something has to happen. And if it doesn't, it really tells you the story of what's gonna come next, which is basically gonna be a very angry Camille just running a field day over Griffin.
And I think some fans would look at this and say, okay, LS, but you're saying that Ezreal comp has a scaling advantage. You're saying, like, why is this? If you consider how fights are likely to play out, how does Ashe achieve anything in a fight after she uses arrow? Because Camille can jump a long damn way and then lock you in. The Akali can jump a long damn way and lock you down, and Sejuani will do her thing as well. So the play pattern difference between the AD carries is pretty big.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's really hard to reliably get onto Ezreal, but the same can't be said for Ashe. There's way too much CC in backline dive inside of the Sejuani, the Sejuani, the Camille, and the Akali. There's just not enough peel for Ashe, and if Ashe goes down, there's not enough sustained damage out of the Sylas in the game plan.
You run those dives, those team fights 50 times with equal skill, and SKT would win way more than they lose. So definitely something that we are in agreement on that point. Tarzan just has found it so hard to use this Elise, and that's actually the biggest kind of scaling difference, is that Elise really kind of falls away in terms of kit with a single target stun and burst damage that can be mitigated with magic resist pretty straightforward. Meanwhile, Sejuani is a team fight tank and occupies that role the entire game.
We saw her hanging around the top side, was thinking maybe we would have another go around with Kahn with his flash available. The last time there were something like 3-4 wards, something ridiculous, but he was still able to make that gank happen. Not going to go for it just yet, just the blue handoff here, as they're going to be happy to wait for Camille to get some items. She got that first blood already. Griffin ahead a little bit on the gold here, but shouldn't matter all too much. A relatively low action game so far.
Well, a minute and a half until Clown Dragon comes up, which I'm not assuming is going to be super priority. I think that whoever has the priority around the map leading up to maybe 30 seconds prior to its spawn, it's probably just going to be the ones that ends up getting it, or we might even just see it sit for a while. Rift Herald, also not the largest priority. Plates are already down. We're 17 and a half minutes into the game. It doesn't really convert into all that much, and neither team composition is one that really cares about their mid-tier 1 turret.
Well, Clid in an awkward spot here has to flash away. There were 5 members of Griffin there, and I think SKT saw them coming in. You talked about the lower priority of the Rift Herald at this point in the game, but still Clid decided to go on in there. Had to blow his flash to get to safety, but Griffin do get the flash and the Rift Herald. We'll have to wait and see where they decide to use that, because, again, mid would be ideal, especially with all the plates down, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what they decide to do with it.
See what resources Griffin can draw from SKT when they charge the Rift Herald. Chovy teleported bot lane in order to make that play happen. So there's going to be a triple TP setup available to SKT very shortly. However, kind of limited places to use that. Cloud Drake about to spawn. Baron coming up in a minute 20.
Cloud Dragon coming up in 15 seconds, like you're saying. And the way that the map is looking right now, with Viper recalling and Sejuani in such close proximity, I'm assuming that SKT would be the ones to get it. Maybe Chovy's thinking about going over the wall here.
Well, he'd probably be going into his death, as only SKT members are there to control the river. There are a couple of wards where Doran could TP to, but
it's a GP.
Yeah,
Ashe Arrow.
They could consider it, but again, just an Ashe Arrow here onto a Braum, not the biggest deal, as they are not going to be able to stop that Cloud Drake.
Well, this is the part of the game where Griffin, they want to actively look to make something happen. They don't want to handshake some sort of a stall that ends up going to 30 minutes. So right now, Rift Herald being spawned. Now, if you're SKT, you can look at this game in a vacuum and be like, okay, well, mid-tier 1 turret, it's not really that important. And neither one of us can really do Baron at 20, 21, 22 minutes. They should just be sitting back, content with scaling up even more, dragging the game out another 10 minutes, and then letting Camille and Akali just run amok all over.
And
Griffin.
10 minutes is for like the standard play, but with all the TPs they have, with item completions like the Miramana to join the Trinity Force, you can also outnumber and use your core item completions to fight soon as well. So it feels like SKT have a lot of options. You never want to drop your mid lane tower, but like LS is saying, you take it at 20 minutes. We're not talking about an 11-minute crack of the mid lane tower by any means.
Yeah, and SKT did go along those lines, right? They had the Ezreal mid lane. Viper was winning the 2v2 basically alone, just poking under the turret and said, we're going to take this, and SKT said, okay. And we're just going to sit back and farm, and we don't really want to fight you. We are very happy with a 1-0 score line here at 20 minutes into the game, and they're just sitting back like old SKT, looking to scale as much as possible.
And you think of the one team that has actually made SKT bleed in postseason LCK, and that was a FLICKR. Took a win there. And when we talk about them, we talk about how they love to gamble. They have a lot of mechanics. They try and make too many aggressive plays and, you know, at the end of the day, usually pay for it. What I'm struck by with SKT is which of the losses or trades of objectives they've taken this series haven't been things they were kind of in full control over whether they lost it or not. They've very much been losing the minimum when they need to, but gaining the maximum in areas where maybe the scaling or the game state didn't necessarily suit them. So we're looking to Griffin to actually get more, and so far we've been left wanting.
Well, speaking of left wanting, Clid.
We could see it here, though. Gonna charge down the lane, and they are absolutely looking for this one. Cannon Barrage comes in. Gonna miss on that one, but the Hextech Ultimatum comes in. The 2v1, where's the damage? Finally it comes out as it takes a while. But either way, they do end up picking up the kill.
But in that while, Griffin aren't achieving anything with their numbers advantage. It's a free send 2 members bot lane, including the smite, and there was not even a modicum of threat or aggro or trading of objectives done by Team Griffin in that time.
And all that it means is that Camille, she's going to get further and further ahead. A turret is going to go down. SK Telecom are that much closer to evening the gold score. And the gold score, it benefits Griffin right now if a 5v5 would break out, but it doesn't really matter. This game is gravitating towards that threshold of Griffin is going to lose their advantage of the mid-rangey type of team composition. Their champions are going to taper off. And eventually, Akali, Camille, they're going to become too scary for Ashe and Silas to handle, and Gangplank's just going to be left wanting.
I don't want to watch this play. I'm just going to want to watch the minimap. You know your bot laner is going to die eventually. What do you do with that time? The Tonkan's just nowhere in position to look for an Abyssal Voyage play.
But that's what they're trying. That's what it looks like, right? The arrow comes out and they're desperately trying to follow. But that's a team that's playing reactively rather than proactively. And they're also not looking to react in the correct way either, as you were talking about.
And, you know, one way we're talking, and we've had that great talk myself, Grabs and also Young Buck on the LEC broadcast about the LCK teams and where they might trip up and where some of the shortcomings are, and it's something that'll be music to LS's ears. But the big thing that they said that they criticized Korean teams for,
Moralanomicon?
handshake. Too many times
Not enough
in Korea, one team gets a strong side of the map, the enemy team says, all right, we'll come in without vision to fight you for this objective. We don't have to. In that scenario, to get anything representing an even fight, it was going to take a lot of time. And instead, you could just be taking over the Baron vision and forcing SKT to respond to you. Instead, the first thought is, oh, we should back that up way out of position slowly. And by the time that idea was even crystallized in their head, the person was dead and they got nothing. So the first thought is not, how much can we get while the enemy team does this? The first thought is, how can we mitigate a loss?
Take a look at what's going on the screen. FLICKR And SKT, they say, hey, you want to group up as 5 and take the Cloud Drake? Be our guests. We'll take the top turret. We can get objectives. FLICKR going to sit back and farm up some more, scale up some more. They don't really care too much about it. I like Griffin trying to make stuff happen, but the Cloud Drake isn't going to be the thing that gets them over the line in the late game.
It's not really a dragon that is going to play that big of a part, especially at this stage of the game, due to the nature of how Griffin's team composition fights.
Very simply,
they're not using mobility.
Simple question to kind of crystallize this point. Drakes are often fought for, and arguably they're over fought for, but on a simple thing, if that's an Infernal, SKT aren't setting up like that. Seeing the Drake type and understanding that they can get turret plus Baron control for a Cloud Drake, I think SKT is 100% sure as a squad they won out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they take a look at the next Drake and they're just, you know, rubbing their hands together and nodding their head yes, just like Jack Nicholson, because that's exactly the Drake they wanted. The 25, or I guess eventually 29-minute Ocean Drake is going to do 0 for Griffin's comp.
Is quite literally the best possible role and truly a skillful display of talent by SKT to manage to roll this dragon here in game number 2. It's the worst possible Drake for Griffin. In SKT, they don't need any more advantages.
And you know what will be the worst possible decision? Eyes up, just watch this play.
Oh, Teddy went into the one-on-one, and they're able to bait Tarzan into this. The arrow going to do nothing, but here comes Chovy from the left side. Tarzan able to do a nice amount of damage, but it doesn't matter. Griffin, they lost their AD carry in the entire trade. Tom Kent not able to do anything to save Viper's life.
Well, it does look like SKT, they're going to turn their attention
they just got
to
that
the
Baron
Baron.
Control.
And remember, they have a Mountain Drake. Tarzan, he's not around, he's running. Abyssal Voyage.
Tarzan trying to get in there, but they're not close enough. The smite's gonna come down. And SKT, they just solidified their mid-game, and they're ahead. Teddy's already got QSS, nothing they can do there. The Mountain Drake able to help them over the line, and now SKT has a full grasp on this game.
Every play SKT makes is measured. They know what the ultimate objective is behind the setup. Meanwhile, Griffin are taking the scraps, but those scraps are in no way compensating for the delicious banquet that SKT is putting together. This would be another consecutive best-of-5 victory. Remember, they sacrificed a Cloud Drake for Baron setup. They use Ezreal's Power Spike to choke out and poke out the Ashe, and from here, the upside is real.
Oh, man.
Well, they don't call him General Teddy for nothing.
Ashe didn't pay her debt to Tom's, though. He went gold and allowed the skill shot to hit. That's what happened right there.
He had a Pepe laugh on the entire time.
Viper didn't know. Oh, man. Well, coming back into the live game, even though SK Telecom don't look like they're trying to utilize the Baron to do anything massive, the damage is already done. They swung the gold advantage in their favor. They took the Baron off the map. They're going to be able to coast now into the free land, where their team composition is going to be stronger in every single way.
Gangplank's already trying to wave clear in mid lane. He knows he doesn't want to be addressing the Akali with Baron buff, or, for example, the Camille.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the top side, we're all pushed in there with the Baron one-on-one, FLICKR versus Chovy. Take a look at the bottom side, it's the exact same situation. The observers following me on this one. The 1-3-1, so strong, especially with the fed solo lanes of SKT. And the lack of any big objective for Griffin to make their comp work in the mid-game, especially after losing the Baron. It's looking good for SKT here.
Comprehensive destruction so far. Really, really well coached.
All right, trying to make a play here in the mid lane. Effort getting pretty low, but they can't even kill the damn support with everybody trying to get on top of them. And meanwhile, just what we were talking about, those solo lanes, they're pushing in hard.
1-3-1 is there, Chovy.
FLICKR wants to say see you later, but he's under Shroud, and Chovy is actually going to outplay him. There you go. Able to shut up the SKT fans on the push as he does win that 1v1.
Only for a second, though. They will lose that inhibitor turret for it, and SKT fans have seen their god fall multiple times in lane hasn't mattered too much in the playoffs so far.
Definitely hasn't, as the mid inhibitor turret was broken wide open. And I love what SKT are doing right now. They're taking the Ocean Dragon at 29.5 minutes. It prevents Elder Dragon, which is Griffin's only out. The only possible objective that could come up that would let their team composition go toe-to-toe.
And the amusing thing was, my point earlier before we had a bit of action injected was, the worst thing Griffin could do was not wait till after 30, because they would not want to rush it down, because they want the Elder to spawn as soon as possible. The Elder now spawning later means you have to fight the scaling comp around Baron. You ain't getting the trade you want on the bottom side of the map.
Chovy, we saw there in the outplay of the 1v1, he dodged so much damage. I think he even dashed away from the second part of the perfect execution. He Zonya's the shuriken from the Akali. And even though it started off good for the Akali FLICKR, you have to make sure you're factoring in everything Silas has into his kit. Speaking of which, everybody's trying to gank the Camille now. As we're all on the bottom side, 4-on-1, this isn't exactly fair. He's trying to get the one kill, but it's not gonna happen. And there's no Baron on the opposite side of the map for SKT to take.
And it's a really heavy investment. You bring all the members down into bottom, and you end up killing the Camille, and then you ask yourself, what did it cost you? And, well, the answer may not be everything. It's still a top tier 2 turret and a cannon wave. So it actually ends up being beneficial for SKT.
The one thing you can say is it's far enough away from Baron that you don't lose any real crucial Baron status changes around whether you can contest it or not. So with how far behind they were, it's a possible play. It's just not a play that actually improves your standing in the game.
Yeah, just look at the mini-map while this is happening. 2 control wards are up for the taking. FLICKR getting a solo wave, which was a cannon wave, in addition to a top tier 2 turret. Trade is not worth it for Griffin.
Well, they weren't going to get a better one, LS.
That's, you know what? You're a glass half full kind of guy. I can tell. It's all right.
The Aussies seem to be on that side of the
Something about
map.
these Australians, Valdez. Yeah. To tell them about the American.
The American way, the glass half empty way.
Yeah.
Feels,
or there is no
feels
glass.
Weird, man.
Oh, man.
Well, awkward spot here for Griffin. They make the play, they get the kill, but Kahn's about to get his TP up. We do have Baron spawning here in 20 minutes. Griffin making every effort here to just try to get as much vision around this objective, as everybody knows this is the one to watch for the next couple of minutes.
Doran, no interest in laning against Camille any more than he has to. Trying to make some pressure on the top side. See how SKT responds here. Chovy holding on to the Sejuani ult.
Doran starting it. He's just going for it.
Oh,
The
they're
camera
all in.
is not going to clear out that one. He's going to take out the turret, and Griffin going for the Baron here. Can they get it? It's going to be up to Clid. He's going to get in there, and it goes to the Braum! Effort gets in there and spites it away at level 14. How is he able to do it? This time it's not Clid, but it's still SKT. And the team fight afterwards is done. And we've all seen this video before. It's like a recording. Kahn is going to end the game once again on the split push. We're going to a 2-0 lead now to SKT. Griffin go all in, and the cards are up on the table. SKT win again.
And just like Damwon Gaming, in this game, they panicked Baron in response to Kahn's split push, and it had an extremely similar ending, where Griffin, they were pigeonholed into that spot. They thought they couldn't get a better opportunity. They go for the massive coin flip, and it wasn't really a coin flip though, Papa. It was definitely weighted in SKT's favor.
Honestly, a shot-for-shot remake of an ending we've had multiple times, and like you mentioned, as recently as our most recent series. And the scary thing is that, you know, Griffin were like those deers got cornered by the Predator, trying to just do something they knew they were going to be run through if they didn't. And the fact that it keeps happening again is full credit to SKT for forcing teams into epic lose-lose scenarios. It was a Braum without smite. There was no unsealed spellbook in this game. Stole a 200 health Baron, but that's the sort of scenario that SKT are pushing teams into.
The only one that had unsealed was Tom Kent, I believe,
Yep.
and he wasn't the one that stole that away. We'll see if we do get a replay of that one. I mean, it was all hype as SKT were going in for the victory, as after you saw the blue show up on the right side with Brahm's face, you're like, this game is over. And
where's
yeah,
the
it
mental
was.
state at?
It's gone.
I think it's gone. We have like a 22. Hold on.
They're going to have to make an LS, a last stand. But with the mental state like this, I don't know what they're going to do.
Leaving soon, more like it. That's right.
These game 3s that come off the back of those game 2s
Yeah.
have only gone one way.
Look, just take a look at what's
Sure.
in store for us.
I mean, just
Right
look
here.
at the VOD of the last 2 game
Yeah.
3s,
Oh, man.
and you'd be a betting man to say that Griffin can do better than Sandbox and Damwon, who both capitulated. Really mental destruction, and the mental warfare that SKT have been winning all day usually pays off in a victory lap game 3.
Yeah, I mean, the teams that we knew for somewhat weak mental states were Griffin and maybe, you know, some of the more inconsistent teams. Not necessarily Sandbox and Damwon, but they fell apart like a house of cards. They just collapsed. And now Griffin is kind of showing more of the same. It feels like SKT's reign here in Korea, it doesn't feel like it's over anytime soon. They had a slump, but they could be looking at an 8th win if Griffin somehow cannot pull anything out of the hat for game 3.
Well, what is going to come out of the hat in game number 3? Will we see Sword, or does Griffin have some sort of desperation team composition?
Well,
Because
it's-
I don't think they'll beat
yeah.
them straight up.
It's definitely all desperation time on the side of Griffin. Maybe this is the time you pull out that Singe we were memeing about earlier on, because honestly, straight up games against SKT seem to work for nobody here in the LCK in the playoffs. So we'll have to wait and see what their answer is going to be. I would expect Doran to come back in, but you never really know with some of these teams here, especially with this on the line. But join us, guys, after the break to find out.
이거 상관없긴 한데.
야 바텀 밀어봐 이거 끝내
봐봐.
생각해보자 끝내
네, 걸
생각해봐
거야, 걸 거야.
아니 개그물 공격
아 밀어봐 나 텔 있어
오케이.
미련 있어
칠 거야, 칠 거야.
내가 앞장 쓸게 내가 앞장 쓸게
쳤어, 잘 가.
말하네 야 리콜 끊고 끝내 생각해
별로 안 빨라, 별로 안 빨라.
천천히 봐 스테봐봐
끝내, 끝내.
천천히
나이스, 끝내봐. 집 끊어, 집 끊어. 안 들어가도 돼, 안 들어가도 돼. 집만 끊어, 집만. 집만 끊으면 돼, 이거. 집만 끊으면 돼.
한타 이겨
이겼다, 이겼다.
한타 이겨
끝났어, 끝났어.
한타 이겼어
바텀 텔, 바텀 텔, 바텀 텔.
아 그냥 잡아
텔.
잡아
텔 타고 끝내자, 이거.
얘 높여요
나장래. 텔.
야
나이스.
근데 어떻게 뺏었냐 형우야?
나이스. 아, 그냥 형이 스마야?
내 신발 너무 들어갔는데
나 궁으로 먹었으니까,
그-
내가.
다시
집중하자. 집중해.